These secret techniques were actually all based on the controller's internal universe. They unleashed their speed through the use of the internal universe or worlds. Lin Feng analyzed it carefully and excluded those secret techniques that required a large number of worlds as the foundation. At least for the time being, they were not suitable for him. Actually, he was more willing to choose a secret technique which could increase his speed as his strength improved and his number of worlds increased. It would be a developing secret technique. This way, the range of selection was much smaller. The power of such secret techniques was actually similar. Moreover, the principle was the same. They all possessed extremely fast speed through the contraction and eruption of the internal world. Some were relatively enduring, while others focused on instantaneous eruptions. This secret technique is a little interesting. It can instantly unleash all the power of the worlds in the internal world, and shake the space of the internal universe in a special way to unleash a spatial torrent, propelling the internal world for an instantaneous surge of speed. Lin Feng flipped through this secret technique carefully. Its name was the Void Quake Secret Technique. This was a growth-type secret technique. The power unleashed by all the internal worlds would evoke a majestic void quake torrent. The speed would be extremely daunting, far exceeding ordinary secret techniques. In fact, it was not inferior to those Celestial Devil's traversal technique. Lin Feng was surprised, and his eyes lit up. The thought process and principles of this secret technique were completely different from other secret techniques, and were even comparable to the Celestial Devil's traversal technique. Lin Feng had seen the 11th Celestial Devil King use the Celestial Devil's traversal technique with his own eyes. He had shattered a few layers of the Celestial Devil's true form, which was equivalent to a controller self-destructing a few complete worlds in their bodies. The speed of the resulting traversal technique was incredible. Back when the 11th Celestial Devil King used the Celestial Devil's traversal technique, even Supremacy Autumn could do nothing about it. Even though Supremacy Autumn was far stronger than the 11th Celestial Devil King, he was still unable to catch up to the 11th Celestial Devil King when he used the Celestial Devil's traversal technique. This was enough to show how powerful the Celestial Devil's traversal technique was. But now, this Void Quake secret technique actually claimed to be comparable to the Celestial Devil's traversal technique. It naturally piqued Lin Feng's interest. However, as Lin Feng continued reading, he understood why this secret technique had not been popularized. Few people even chose it because it had a fatal flaw, or rather, a fatal limitation. That was, this secret technique was very harmful to the void in the internal world of controllers. If the boundary stone was not very strong, ordinary controllers' internal world would not even be able to withstand the void quake of this secret technique. At that time, the void quake would really shatter the void, and the internal world would be threatened by collapse. Then, it would not be a powerful secret technique, but suicide. In fact, there was even a vague guideline for this secret technique. It suggested that one's internal world should be established by at least a 3-star boundary stone before they could attempt to cultivate this secret technique. What was the significance of a 3-star boundary stone? It meant that the limit of a world established by a 3-star boundary stone could allow one to become a 3-star supremacy. They were said to possess the power of half a kiliocosm, and infinitely approached a kiliocosm sovereign. How precious was a 3-star boundary stone! Even kiliocosm sovereigns would do their best to fight for a 3-star boundary stone, but there were not many 3-star boundary stones even in all the myriad worlds. In small kiliocosms, 2-star supremacies were usually already hegemon level and peak entities. 3-star supremacies would appear in very few small kiliocosms. This was enough to show how rare and precious 3-star boundary stones were. The Void Quake secret technique actually required a world established by the 3-star boundary stone for entry-level cultivation. Undoubtedly, this made more than 99% of the controllers give up on cultivating it. However, this was not a completely unacceptable condition for Lin Feng. He definitely did not have a 3-star boundary stone, but he did not need one either. His internal universe was incomparably stable. The stability of its void was not inferior to that of an internal universe established by the 3-star boundary stone at all, and might even exceed it. This was because he still had the chaotic lotus, which was deeply rooted in the void of his internal universe. It allowed Lin Feng's cosmic void to reach an extremely, or even abnormally stable state. The first secret technique I'll choose is the Void Quake secret technique. Lin Feng reached out and grabbed the Void Quake secret technique. This was the first secret technique he had chosen. However, the restrictions had yet to be undone, so he could not cultivate it. Lin Feng continued to choose the second and third secret techniques. Apart from speed-type secret technique, he was also missing an offensive secret technique and a defensive secret technique. Currently, Lin Feng was only relying on the most primitive and direct method to fight, which was to mobilize the power of his internal universe. However, for the time being, he could not unleash 100% of the power of his internal universe, let alone augment it. This required a secret technique. For the offensive secret technique, Lin Feng chose the Myriad Origin Offensive Body secret technique. The so-called Myriad Origin Offensive Body integrated all the power in his internal world without wasting any power. The level of attack unleashed like this was naturally very terrifying. However, this required cultivation first. It might take some time, but it was nothing much to Lin Feng. Although this offensive secret technique was far from the top, nor could it be considered the most miraculous, it was the most suitable for a controller. Wasn't the greatest advantage of a controller their internal worlds? Being able to integrate the power of all the worlds into one to unleash terrifying attacks was already commendable. As for the defensive secret technique, Lin Feng's strongest aspect was actually the space in his internal universe. Only an attack that was far stronger than him could possibly tear through his cosmic membrane and damage his internal universe. Hence, Lin Feng chose the membrane reinforcement secret technique. It looked very ordinary and did not have any profound meaning, but it was the most suitable secret technique for Lin Feng. Hence, after choosing all three secret techniques, Lin Feng got the supremacy of the secret technique tower to remove the restrictions on the secret techniques and return to the abode with them. Cultivating the three secret techniques was actually very simple for Lin Feng. At the level of a supremacy, no matter what secret technique they cultivated, it would yield twice the results with half the effort, and did not take much work. After all, secret techniques were only supplementary. The foundation of a controller still lay in the internal worlds. If there were enough internal worlds, the presence of secret techniques actually did not make much of a difference. Lin Feng only took less than a month to cultivate all three secret techniques. Even the Void Quake secret technique, which was the most difficult to cultivate, was a piece of cake for Lin Feng. His universal void could completely withstand the repeated tremors of the Void Quake secret technique. As time passed, not long after Lin Feng mastered the three secret techniques, he welcomed Supremacy Autumn again. There's news from the main lodge of the Primordial Lodge. Congratulations, Supremacy Lin Feng. From now on, you've already become an official member of the Primordial Lodge. Supremacy Spring is still waiting for Supremacy Lin Feng in the hall. There's an important message for Supremacy Lin, and it's related to the position assigned to you. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He knew that the position in the Primordial Lodge was very important. Only with a position could he leave the Primordial Lodge and plunder worlds everywhere to increase his strength. I wonder what position Supremacy Spring has arranged for me? Lin Feng asked Supremacy Autumn. However, even Supremacy Autumn shook his head and said, I'm not too sure either, but your potential is infinite. The main lodge definitely values you highly. Don't worry, there will certainly be benefits. With that, even Supremacy Autumn chuckled. He was not worried at all that Lin Feng would not be assigned a good position. Lin Feng nodded. No matter how he speculated, it was pointless. He could only follow Supremacy Autumn to meet Supremacy Spring. He would naturally know when the time came. In the hall of the Primordial Lodge, Lin Feng saw Supremacy Spring again. However, at this moment, there were two unfamiliar controllers besides Supremacy Spring. The aura on their bodies was not much inferior to Supremacy Autumn's. Greetings, Supremacy Spring. Lin Feng bowed to Supremacy Spring. When the other two unfamiliar supremacies saw Lin Feng, they also nodded silently in acknowledgement, and seemed to show some intention of befriending him. Supremacy Lin Feng. These two are Supremacy Summer and Supremacy Winter. Greetings, Supremacy Summer and Supremacy Winter. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. All the 4 seasons supremacies were gathered here now. He wondered what Supremacy Spring was going to announce. I summoned the 3 supremacies this time to discuss a matter. The main lodge has already sent a 1-star supremacy to open a new battlefield in the Tongu Kiliakosm domain. The Tongu domain is one of the most important Kiliakosm domains to those celestial devils in the entire Great Kiliakosm. Hence, establishing the Tongu battlefield is actually very difficult and dangerous. The Primordial Lodge will continue to send some supremacies to the Tongu domain. I will follow them to the Tongu domain as well. However, the Dark domain cannot be neglected either. We absolutely cannot allow those celestial devils to occupy it. Hence, I propose to the main lodge for Supremacy Summer to take charge of the overall situation, with Supremacies Autumn and Winter assisting him. You will lead half of the current supremacies in the exquisite Kiliakosm to the Dark domain to establish a battlefield, and expel or annihilate the celestial devils in the Dark domain as soon as possible. Supremacy Lin Feng, follow the 3 supremacies to the Dark domain to establish a new battlefield. After all, you came from the Dark domain, so you are very familiar with it. Supremacy Spring looked at Lin Feng amiably. Clearly, Supremacy Spring had put a lot of effort into assigning Lin Feng's position. This position was very beneficial to Lin Feng. Normally, a newly established battlefield represented infinite possibilities. Even the many supremacies in the main lodge of the medium Kiliakosm would think of ways to head to the battlefield of small Kiliakosms. This was because it was easy to obtain worlds on the battlefield of the small Kiliakosm, and rapidly increase one's strength. Not only were there many worlds in the Dark domain Kiliakosm, it was a new place. The celestial devils were not very strong, and Lin Feng was rather familiar with them. Once a battlefield was established in the Dark domain Kiliakosm, Lin Feng would undoubtedly be able to obtain benefits easier than others. Thank you, Supremacy Spring. Lin Feng bowed deeply to Supremacy Spring. He appreciated Supremacy Spring's goodwill, and remembered it firmly in his heart. Supremacy Lin Feng will have to work together in the future. The person who knows the most about the Dark domain Kiliakosm in the entire Primordial Lodge is you. I have to consult you properly. As the person in charge of the battlefield in the Dark domain Kiliakosm, Supremacy Summer also expressed goodwill to Lin Feng. Clearly, many supremacies were willing to befriend Lin Feng on account of his potential. Hence, after Supremacy Summer learned about the Dark domain Kiliakosm in detail, he decided that in 3 days, they would lead half of the supremacies of the exquisite Kiliakosm to the Dark domain Kiliakosm and establish a new battlefield. They must expel the celestial devils of the Dark domain Kiliakosm and conquer the entire Dark domain Kiliakosm. For 3 days, many supremacies of the exquisite realm were making preparations. However, Lin Feng was not prepared. As he had only stayed in the Primordial Lodge for a short period of time, although Lin Feng learned a little about controllers, it was still very limited. Lin Feng did not waste any more time and went to consult Supremacy Autumn directly. As one of the 4 seasons supremacies, he definitely knew a lot about controllers. Supremacy Autumn, we are about to head to the Dark domain Kiliakosm, but I have some questions that I have to voice. Lin Feng did not beat around the bush and asked directly. Supremacy Autumn was very magnanimous and said with a smile, "Oh, if there's anything Supremacy Lin Feng needs to know, feel free to ask." Lin Feng pondered for a moment and finally asked in a low voice, "Supremacy Autumn, please forgive me for being presumptuous. The controllers might not be united. There might also be disputes over interests, and competitions might occur. Then, have controllers ever killed or even devoured each other?" This was what Lin Feng had always wanted to ask. Since a controller's strength was measured by their internal world, it was naturally crucial for a controller to devour more worlds as soon as possible. Rather than constantly searching for worlds to devour in unfamiliar domains, they might also encounter battles with celestial devils, which might be dangerous. Wouldn't it be easier to obtain worlds by devouring other controllers? Moreover, they might be able to ascend to the top in a single step and obtain a large number of worlds. Lin Feng had long known about the darker side of people. It was impossible for controllers to be so pure-hearted. Hearing Lin Feng's question, a smile appeared on Supremacy Autumn's lips. He nodded and replied, "That's right. It's quite impressive that Supremacy Lin Feng realized this in such a short period of time. In the myriad worlds, the true hegemons are actually us controllers and the celestial devils. We are natural enemies and can only kill each other. But is it possible for us to kill our own kind? It's actually possible as well, but the number of controllers is actually far too little. Compared to the celestial devils, the number of controllers is very small. Even if we nurture them, there are actually very few of them. Our numbers are far inferior to those celestial devils. There will naturally be disputes among the few controllers, but they are relatively rare, and they usually won't kill each other. After all, it's not that easy to defeat other controllers. Moreover, there are often powerful factions behind controllers. There are very few loners. As for controllers devouring the worlds of other controllers, that's almost impossible. Huh? Why is that impossible? Lin Feng was a little curious. Once every world is moved into the controller's internal world, it will be marked with a unique imprint of the internal world. They will all carry the unique rules of the controller. If rashly devoured with different rules of internal worlds, fierce conflicts can only break out, and it is almost impossible to suppress them. If devoured by force, either the world will collapse or both worlds will collapse. There are only these two possibilities. For a dead controller, it'll be even simpler. Every dead controller's internal world will collapse with them. Absolutely no complete world can be left behind. Therefore, it's possible for controllers to fight and kill each other, but it's impossible to increase their strength quickly by devouring the internal worlds of other controllers. Lin Feng came to a realization. He was a controller, so he naturally understood that the internal world of a controller would have a unique imprint and unique rules. Moreover, there were powerful reincarnation realms that would mark those worlds with imprints. Devour? It was completely impossible. It was precisely due to this characteristic of the controllers that many disputes among them were avoided. Otherwise, controllers would not be so unified as they were now. There were simply too many people who would take risks for the sake of benefits. They would not care about the greater picture at all. Supremacy Lin Feng, you must seize the opportunity to open a new battlefield in the dark domain Kiliacosm this time. Such an opportunity is rare to come by. The dark domain Kiliacosm won't be too dangerous, and there's only celestial devil Emperor Mongshan. However, Supremacy Summer can deal with him. We just need to deal with the other celestial devil kings. Lin Feng nodded. Of course he understood what the opportunity Supremacy Autumn was talking about was. It was to use the opportunity of establishing a new battlefield to devour worlds in the dark domain Kiliacosm and increase his strength. Only in some Kiliacosms occupied by the celestial devils could one devour to their heart's content. Devouring worlds was not allowed in the Kiliacosm domains occupied by controller factions. Even though there were actually very few unclaimed worlds in the Kiliacosms occupied by controllers, there were still worlds after all. Apart from worlds that took the initiative to request entering the internal universe of the controller for protection, controller supremacies were forbidden to use force to devour the worlds in the controller faction. This was because it was extremely easy to cause disputes between different factions. For example, in the exquisite Kiliacosm occupied by the Primordial Lodge, there were still some worlds that had not been devoured by the controllers or nascent worlds. There would always be some. These worlds could only be given to those members of the Primordial Lodge who had made contributions as rewards. If the controllers of other factions entered the exquisite Kiliacosm and forcefully devoured the worlds, it would practically be a declaration of war against the Primordial Lodge. Hence, opportunities to open a new battlefield were all very precious. Supremacy Spring had actually arranged for Lin Feng to go to the dark domain Kiliacosm to express his goodwill. I understand. Thank you for your trouble, Supremacy Autumn. Lin Feng roughly understood everything and bade farewell to Supremacy Autumn. 3 days later, under the lead of Supremacy Summer, and with the help of Supremacy Autumn and Supremacy Winter, a total of thousands of controller supremacies advanced majestically towards the dark domain Kiliacosm. This was half of the forces of the exquisite Kiliacosm. The number of controllers was indeed far fewer than Lin Feng had imagined. Although controllers could work hard to cultivate, there were very few who could successfully cultivate to become controllers in the first place. In addition, the production of the boundary stone was also rather small, so there were naturally very few controllers. There was only 1 in 10,000 who did not need the boundary stone to establish a world. The probability of someone like Lin Feng, who had experienced hardships and narrowly escaped death many times before being lucky enough to transform into a universe, was even lower. If not for the appearance of boundary stones, the number of controllers would probably be even fewer. It would probably be difficult for them to even contend with the celestial devils in the myriad worlds. Although those celestial devils were born with their power, they reproduced very quickly. In this aspect, they were at least far stronger than controllers. As a result, there were many more celestial devils than controllers. However, the controllers also had advantages. At least at the same realm, controllers were much stronger. Moreover, controllers did not die easily. Although they did not have the undying characteristic like the celestial devils, it was still very difficult to kill a controller completely. The controllers and supremacies of the Primordial Lodge used their secret techniques majestically and quickly arrived at the Dark Domain Kiliacosm. To many controllers, the Dark Domain Kiliacosm was unfamiliar. This was their first time here. However, to Lin Feng, this was his home, so he was naturally all too familiar with it. There was no space and they could not sense time. In the beginning, many controllers could not adapt to this type of strange rules. However, by relying on the power of their internal worlds, many controllers gradually adapted. The first thing they did after arriving at the Dark Domain Kiliacosm was to build a war fortress. This was also the most effective method in warfare between controllers and celestial devils. The celestial devils had the celestial devil worlds, and the controller also had the war fortress. Once the war fortress was established, it would be very difficult for the celestial devils to break through. Similarly, with the existence of the celestial devil worlds, those celestial devils would be very difficult to kill. Even if their celestial devil's true form was destroyed, they could quickly revive in the celestial devil worlds, and were very difficult to deal with. Establishing the war fortress did not require much help from controllers. The 3 supremacies Summer, Autumn and Winter released the fortresses that had been refined in advance, and combined them to form a huge war fortress. It was almost identical to the war fortress of the exquisite Kiliacosm. These war fortresses were all finished products forged in advance. Every war fortress was priceless. Even a 3-star supremacy could not forge them. Only a Kiliacosm sovereign had the ability to forge a war fortress. Hence, those who could establish a battlefield in the small Kiliacosm and compete with the celestial devils were all controller factions presided over by a Kiliacosm sovereign. Those controller factions without a Kiliacosm sovereign could not fight independently against the celestial devils, and had to rely on a powerful controller faction. Actually, the most fundamental reason was that without a controller faction with a Kiliacosm sovereign, one could not forge war fortresses. Without the war fortress, one would have almost no advantage when facing the celestial devils. After establishing the war fortress, the controllers did not take action immediately. Instead, they all entered the war fortress. The 3 supremacies assigned the teams they led. Supremacy Summer and Supremacy Autumn each led a portion of the controllers. Naturally, Supremacy Winter also led a portion of the controllers. The teams led by the 3 supremacies advanced in 3 different directions. This way, they occupy the entire Dark Domain Kiliacosm faster. Lin Feng naturally chose to follow Supremacy Autumn. Although the 3 armies advanced in different directions at the same time, how massive was a region? It was simply vast to the extreme. Even the controllers in the same direction were actually only in charge of one region each. Controllers were also in contact with each other. They would all request that they did not go too far apart. At the very least, they could provide reinforcement in any situation. At this moment, Lin Feng was in an unfamiliar area. He could clearly sense that there were other controller companions behind or nearby. If anything happened, they could reinforce him immediately. This feeling of having companions was really wonderful. Lin Feng had once been hunted down by the celestial devils everywhere in the Dark Domain Kiliacosm. He could only watch as the number of celestial devils increased. Supported by the celestial devil world, they had nothing to fear, and hunted Lin Feng down multiple times. But now, Lin Feng also had companions. Celestial devils. Lin Feng did not forget how those devils hunted him down, especially Rakshasa, Ortos, and the 11th Celestial Devil King. Lin Feng remembered them all firmly. This time, he would return it 10 or 100 times over. However, the most important thing now was to find more worlds, and devour more worlds. This might sound cruel, but it was the reality. Controllers were not saviors. They would not protect those worlds for no reason. It was also because they had a need for worlds that they came from afar to compete with the celestial devils for the worlds. However, the controllers' actions would not be as brutal as those of the celestial devils. The many worlds that were devoured by the controllers could still develop to become better. The lifeforms inside would also be protected from the attacks of the celestial devils. Even so, Lin Feng knew very well that controllers were not saviors. In a sense, the controllers were actually the same as the celestial devils. Wherever they passed, the worlds within the Kiliacosm domain would be emptied out. Buzz. Suddenly, Lin Feng's entire body shook slightly. A distress call? Before Lin Feng could find worlds, unexpectedly, he received a distress message from his companions in the Primordial Lodge. There was only one reason a controller would ask for help. They had encountered celestial devils. Void Quake. Without any hesitation, Lin Feng used his secret technique immediately. A torrent erupted from the void in his internal universe. Lin Feng instantly transformed into a stream of light and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. He headed into the depths of the dark domain as quickly as possible. Haha! We're so lucky to actually encounter a controller. Humph, the appearance of a controller in the dark domain is not a good sign. It's even possible that these controllers have already begun to interfere in the dark domain Kiliacosm. That might be the case. This is very important news. After killing this controller, we'll report this news to His Majesty the Celestial Devil King. We will definitely receive a lot of rewards. A controller. The origin of every controller's internal world is very massive and delicious. It's enough to be divided among even 3 celestial devils. In the infinite black domain, the 3 celestial devils manifested their celestial devils' true forms. Their faces were sinister as they surrounded a controller in the middle. There was another world not far from the controller and the celestial devils. Damn celestial devils. Let's see if you can still laugh when the other controllers receive the message and rush over to reinforce me. Supremacy Fura's expression was very dark. She was under Supremacy Autumn's command and was a Supremacy controller with 4 worlds. Her strength was not too bad, but it was not powerful either. If she had encountered one celestial devil, she might have been able to deal with them. However, at this moment, there were a total of 3 celestial devils surrounding her. These 3 celestial devils were not weak. They were all celestial devils who had cultivated 5-layer true forms. When the 3 celestial devils joined forces, even Supremacy Fura found it a little difficult to resist. If there's really no other way, I can only use my secret technique to escape. Fura still wanted to hold out for a while longer. This was the first time she had entered the dark domain Kiliacosm, and it would be too embarrassing to flee like this. Moreover, she had a secret technique. Although she was somewhat confident that she could escape, what if she could not? That would be troublesome. Her secret technique did not guarantee 100% that she could escape. Hence, if she could hold out now, she would try her best to hold out. Huh? Companion has responded. Supremacy Lin Feng is rushing over? Fura sent a distress message immediately. Originally, she did not expect anyone to rush over soon. After all, although the supremacies in every team would not go too far apart, how big was the dark domain Kiliacosm? Even if they received the message, it would take some time, and rushing over would take even longer. In particular, Fura had never actually heard of this Supremacy Lin Feng. Supremacy Lin Feng? I've never heard of such a supremacy in the exquisite Kiliacosm. Could he be a supremacy who has just joined the Primordial Lodge? Fura's expression stiffened slightly. If it was a supremacy who had just joined the Primordial Lodge, things would be troublesome. Such supremacies were usually not very strong. They only joined the Primordial Lodge to obtain certain positions, which could allow them to follow the many powerful controllers of the Primordial Lodge to fight everywhere, and thus obtain opportunities to devour worlds. Such a supremacy strength might be similar to supremacy Fura, or even weaker. They would not be of much help even if they came, and might even wind up in danger. Fura wanted to ask Lin Feng about his strength, but it was already quite difficult to sense a distress call in the dark domain Kiliacosm. As for contacting him and talking to him, that was impossible. I'll hold out for a while longer and see what this supremacy Lin Feng is like. I hope he won't disappoint me. Otherwise, I can only use my secret technique to escape. Supremacy Fura gritted her teeth and used her full strength to deal with the 3 celestial devils. These 3 celestial devils all used their 5-layer celestial devils' true forms. All of them were incomparably sinister and terrifying. They were originally going to devour a world, but they encountered Supremacy Fura by accident. There was absolutely no room for reconciliation between the celestial devils and supremacies. Once they encountered each other, there was only one possibility, and that was to fight. Moreover, it would be a battle to the death. Boom, boom, boom. Supremacy Fura did her best to unleash all her worlds. The surging power of the worlds fought majestically with the 3 celestial devils. The celestial devils' true forms manifested by the 3 celestial devils were simply overwhelming. One could sense their terrifying aura from afar. Even the shockwaves of the battle between the 2 parties shook the world not far away violently. The living beings in the world were all trembling in fear, and could only look at the battle in the distance. If the shockwaves were any stronger, they would even be enough to destroy the world nearby. They're still not here? I can't hold out much longer. Supremacy Fura's face was a little pale. She felt that her internal world was about to collapse. The world membrane was about to be torn apart by the 3 celestial devils. Once the 3 celestial devils tore the world membrane apart, or even burrowed into her internal world, Supremacy Fura knew very well what that meant. It very likely meant that the origin of her internal world would be completely devoured by the celestial devils, and she would be in danger of falling. Hence, without complete confidence, a controller absolutely would not dare to let the celestial devils enter their internal world when fighting with them. This was because once anything unexpected happened, the controller would be in danger of completely falling. Swoosh! Just as Supremacy Fura was about to collapse, and was considering whether to use her secret technique to escape, Lin Feng finally arrived. Ha! The 3 celestial devils also sensed a figure in the distance, emitting a rich world aura. Another controller? The 3 celestial devils were very vigilant. One of them even went up to him immediately. Swoosh! As soon as Lin Feng arrived, he scanned with his mental power and saw the scene in front of him. 3 celestial devils were attacking a controller. From the looks of it, the controller's situation was already rather bad. At this moment, a celestial devil took the initiative to charge at him. A sharp glint flashed across Lin Feng's eyes. A celestial devil with a 5-layer true form was almost equivalent to a celestial devil king's personal guard. In the past, 2 celestial devil king's personal guards had forced Lin Feng to use the space-time imprint to escape. But now, Lin Feng was no longer the same as before. He was completely different. Myriad Origin Integration Secret Technique. Without any hesitation, Lin Feng immediately used the offensive secret technique he had just mastered to attack. The worlds in his internal universe all contributed their world power at this moment, fusing into one in his internal universe. Slash! Lin Feng used his palm as a saber, and slashed down hard like an incomparably sharp saber. Crack! The celestial devil's 5 layers of true form coiled on his body. His expression was sinister and terrifying, and he charged towards Lin Feng fiercely with a savage aura. However, before the celestial devil could reach Lin Feng's palm had already struck down, making a downward slash from head to toe. Immediately, the celestial devil's entire body shook. A trace of disbelief and even fear appeared in his huge eyes. As Lin Feng's palm descended, the celestial devil's 5-layer true form collapsed with a bang. His huge body was sliced into 2. Before he could even let out a scream, his 5-layer true form had been destroyed. A powerful celestial devil with a 5-layer true form was instantly killed. What? He had fallen. A celestial devil with a 5-layer true form had actually fallen instantly. Not only were the remaining 2 celestial devils shocked, even Supremacy Fura was shocked. She knew that there was no such controller as Supremacy Linfeng in the Primordial Lodge in the past. How could a Supremacy who had just joined the Primordial Lodge be so strong? That was a celestial devil with 5 layers of true form. However, Linfeng did not stop at all. Almost immediately, he continued to charge towards the 2 celestial devils. Moreover, he was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived in front of the 2 celestial devils. Myriad Origin Integration Secret Technique. It was the Myriad Origin Integration Secret Technique again. Linfeng had never even considered using the defensive secret technique to deal with 2 celestial devils with 5-layer true forms. He mobilized all the worlds in his body directly. It had to be known that just his power of worlds alone was equivalent to a controller of 11 or even 12 worlds. Perhaps to the 4 seasons supremacies, Lin Feng's strength was insignificant. However, in the eyes of ordinary controllers, such strength was actually quite impressive. At least, it was not in the bottom category. In particular, when Lin Feng used his secret technique, it was even more terrifying. Boom! Lin Feng slammed his palm down. This palm seemed to blot out everything, even larger than the true forms of the 2 celestial devils. The palm contained the terrifying power of 11 or even 12 worlds, and slammed down hard like a mountain. This was a crushing disparity in raw strength. At this moment, even if the 2 celestial devils wanted to use the celestial devil's traversal technique, they no longer had the chance. They had lost the best opportunity, so they could only watch helplessly as Lin Feng's palm descended. No! As the celestial devils cried out in pain, the 2 formidable celestial devils with 5-layer true forms were directly reduced to dust by Lin Feng's palm strike. The destruction of the celestial devils' true forms meant that none of the 3 celestial devils were spared, and all of them fell. However, Lin Feng also knew that this was not true death. The 3 celestial devils could still be resurrected in the celestial devil world. However, every time they were resurrected, they had to pay a huge price. At the very least, it was almost impossible for them to recover to their peak in a short period of time. If they wanted to recover to their peak, they would have to slowly accumulate world origins again. It was almost like starting from scratch. To any celestial devil, having their celestial devil's true form destroyed and starting from scratch was already a rather severe blow. Your Supremacy Fura? Lin Feng looked at Supremacy Fura. When she sent the distress message, she had revealed her identity. This was also to obtain the help of her companions faster. Otherwise, without a name and identity, many controller supremacies would even hesitate when receiving distress messages. Although Lin Feng had destroyed 3 celestial devils' true forms in a row, the speed was actually very fast, and the process was not complicated. It was done in the blink of an eye. Supremacy Fura also reacted quickly. She nodded and said, "That's right. I'm Supremacy Fura. Your Supremacy Lin Feng? I've never heard of your name before. I just joined the Primordial Lodge recently. It's normal for you not to know my name. As expected, you're the Supremacy who just joined the Primordial Lodge. However, your strength is really incredible. You're about equivalent to a controller with more than 10 worlds. Otherwise, you couldn't have dealt with these 3 celestial devils with 5-layer true forms so easily. Supremacy Lin Feng, thank you very much for your help. Otherwise, I could only use my secret technique to escape, and I might not even be able to escape." Supremacy Fura expressed her gratitude to Lin Feng. She was quite lucky that he acted to rescue her. After all, they were in an unfamiliar Kiliacosm domain. Even with the reinforcements of their companions, they might not receive aid in time and would end up killed by the celestial devils. By the way, did you encounter those 3 celestial devils when you found this world? Lin Feng looked at the world in the distance. That's right, this world. Originally, this origin of this world was being devoured by these 3 celestial devils. My sudden appearance attracted the attention of the 3 celestial devils, which was why I was in danger. Supremacy Lin Feng, the three celestial devils had only just devoured a little world origin of that world. This foundation was far from damaged. Hence, this is still a complete world. Supremacy Lin Feng can devour it. I believe it will definitely increase Supremacy Lin Feng's strength further. Supremacy Fura suddenly said, "Huh? You were the one who discovered this world. Supremacy Fura should devour it." Lin Feng shook his head. He knew that in the Primordial Lodge, there were generally rules about conquering unfamiliar Kiliacosm domains to avoid competing with each other for worlds. Whoever discovered it first would devour it. This rule could not be violated. Otherwise, the Primordial Lodge would actually come forward to adjudicate the matter. However, Supremacy Fura said with a smile, although the one who discovers it first will devour it, there's another unwritten rule, and that is that the aider is qualified to devour the world. Otherwise, if a companion called for help, who would be so proactive in providing aid? Lin Feng thought about it carefully. That was indeed the case. He did not mind, but if time dragged on or if the other controller supremacies received distress messages, there would be no benefits and the rescue might even be dangerous. Who would choose to rescue their companions? However, if rescuing others was beneficial, everyone would naturally take the initiative to rescue them. This unwritten rule was actually very necessary. In that case, I won't stand on ceremony. Lin Feng flew directly in front of this world. He did need to devour the world now and increase his strength as soon as possible. This world was also very huge and beautiful. World rulers had even been born in it. However, after the celestial devils were devoured just now, the world rulers of this world also understood their own situation. Lin Feng also followed the usual practice and explained the significance of the existence of the controllers to the world rulers. Having learned that being devoured by the controller could protect this world, these world rulers all chose to be devoured by Lin Feng unanimously. In reality, they had no choice. Moreover, being devoured by Lin Feng, a controller, was much better than being devoured by the celestial devils and seeing the world destroyed. Hence, with the cooperation of the world rulers, Lin Feng's internal universe descended and successfully devoured this quadrilateral world into his internal universe. From then on, another quadrilateral civilization appeared in Lin Feng's internal universe. It was the 8th complete world in Lin Feng's internal universe. After Lin Feng devoured the quadrilateral world, he exchanged contact information with Supremacy Fura. In the Primordial Lodge, Lin Feng could be considered to have a second good friend who was a supremacy besides Supremacy Autumn. However, Supremacy Fura's strength was far inferior to Supremacy Autumn. The two of them still had to carry out their mission to continue searching for other worlds and the Celestial Devil world. Hence, the two of them separated not long after, and continued to search for worlds and traces of the Celestial Devil world. Lin Feng did not know that with his arrival, the Celestial Devil world was plunged into enormous turmoil. His Majesty the 11th Celestial Devil King, that controller, Lin Feng, has appeared again. In the Celestial Devil world, Ordos came to the Celestial Devil Palace of the 11th Celestial Devil King in a panic and shouted in shock. Huh? That damned controller has returned to the dark domain Kiliacosm. The 11th Celestial Devil King's eyes were filled with anger, and he only wished he could rip Lin Feng apart. Last time, the 11th Celestial Devil King was severely injured by Supremacy Autumn while he was pursuing Lin Feng. He lost a total of 27 layers of the Celestial Devil's true form. Including the Celestial Devil's true form he had lost in the exquisite Kiliacosm previously, he had lost a total of 60 layers of the Celestial Devil's true form. The current 11th Celestial Devil King only had 90 layers of the Celestial Devil's true form. Although 90 layers of the Celestial Devil's true form were still very powerful, that's only very powerful compared to those ordinary Celestial Devils. Compared to the other Celestial Devil Kings, the 11th Celestial Devil King could be considered to have lost all his dignity. After all, even the weakest Celestial Devil King had at least 100 layers of the Celestial Devil's true form. Only those with 100 layers of Celestial Devil's true form could have the title of Celestial Devil King. The current 11th Celestial Devil King could only choose to lie dormant in the Celestial Devil world and silently lick his wounds. However, he did not forget that Lin Feng was the cause behind all of this. Didn't that small controller leave the Primordial Lodge with the 4 seasons supremacies of the Primordial Lodge? He should be in the exquisite Kiliacosm. Why is he in the dark domain Kiliacosm now? Although the 11th Celestial Devil King was furious and wished he could tear Lin Feng into pieces, he did not lose his mind. Back then, Lin Feng had encountered Supremacy Autumn of the Primordial Lodge. After following Supremacy Autumn out of the dark domain Kiliacosm, even Ordos could not sense him. Normally, detection of the Celestial Devil's flesh would gradually weaken with distance. Once the target left the Kiliacosm domain and headed for another Kiliacosm domain, it would be even more impossible to sense them. After all, even the rules between Kiliacosm domains were different. How could one sense them? Previously, Ordos could not sense Lin Feng. It was why the 11th Celestial Devil King speculated that Lin Feng had left the dark domain Kiliacosm with Supremacy Autumn. He must have headed for the exquisite Kiliacosm. But now Ordos could sense Lin Feng again. That could only mean that Lin Feng had returned to the dark domain Kiliacosm. Would Lin Feng return alone? The 11th Celestial Devil King fell into deep thought. Your Majesty, the 11th Celestial Devil King, 3 Celestial Devils under the 8th Celestial Devil King, have just revived in the Celestial Devil Pool. They encountered 2 controllers and their Celestial Devil's true forms were destroyed. Could it be that the controllers of the exquisite realm have already invaded the dark domain Kiliacosm on a large scale, and are preparing to establish a battlefield in the dark domain Kiliacosm? Ordos said cautiously. That's possible. Currently, the war in the exquisite Kiliacosm has already reached the final stage. It can almost be considered over. Those damned controllers will naturally find new Kiliacosm domains and open up new battlefields. No, this news is very important. I will personally report it to the great Emperor Mongshan. With that, the huge figure of the 11th Celestial Devil King quickly transformed into a stream of light and disappeared from the Celestial Devil Palace. In the Celestial Devil world, there was a tall tower. It was the tallest building in the entire Celestial Devil world. This tall tower was like the center of the Celestial Devil world. Normally, no Celestial Devil would dare to approach it. This was because this tower was the residence of the Supreme Celestial Devil Emperor Mongshan of Celestial Devil World in the dark domain Kiliacosm. Only Celestial Devil Kings were qualified to step into the tower. Swoosh! The 11th Celestial Devil King flew into the tower and came straight to the top floor. Great Emperor Mongshan, the thousand-faced Devil King has something to report. The 11th Celestial Devil King lowered his head and shouted in a low voice. In the tower, even the prideful Celestial Devil King had to bow his proud head, because the Celestial Devil Emperor was the true ruler of the entire Celestial Devil world. Every Celestial Devil Emperor had to cultivate at least 1,000 layers of the Celestial Devil's true form before they could attain the title. Compared to Emperor Mongshan, the 11th Celestial Devil King was really pitifully weak. Rumble. As soon as the 11th Celestial Devil King finished speaking, the stone door on the top floor of the tower slowly opened, revealing a terrifying Celestial Devil whose entire body was shrouded in pitch-black mist. He was Celestial Devil Emperor Mongshan. Thousand-faced Devil King, what's made you so alarmed? Oh, you've even lost 60 layers of your Celestial Devil's true form, and you don't even possess 100 layers. What exactly happened? Emperor Mongshan saw through the 11th Celestial Devil's King's true strength at a glance. Great Emperor Mongshan, previously, I met Supremacy Autumn, one of the 4 seasons supremacies of the exquisite Kiliacosm. I lost dozens of layers of my Celestial Devil's true form. Now, signs indicate that the controllers of the Primordial Lodge in the exquisite Kiliacosm have already invaded the dark domain Kiliacosm. I'm afraid they're going to open a new battlefield in the dark domain Kiliacosm. The matter is of great importance. I do not dare to make the decision without permission, so I'm reporting to Your Majesty. The 11th Celestial Devil King talked about all the information he knew, coupled with his speculations. What? The Primordial Lodge is preparing to open a new battlefield in the dark domain Kiliacosm? This day will come sooner or later. Those controllers have been fighting with us Celestial Devils in countless small Kiliacosms for countless years. However, the dark domain chiliocosm is mine. No one can take it from me, not even the controllers. Thousand-faced Devil King. Inform all the Devil Kings in the celestial devil world immediately that the battle is about to begin. Those controllers of the exquisite realm would not allot all their forces to the dark domain chiliocosm. They have other troubles. We don't even need to fight the controllers head-on. We're very familiar with the dark domain chiliocosm. But those controllers are different. Launch sneak attacks as far as possible, and kill them jointly as far as possible. Yes, the most important thing is to constantly devour the world origins in the dark domain chiliocosm. If all the world origins in the dark domain chiliocosm are devoured by us celestial devils, so what if we give this empty dark domain chiliocosm to those controllers? Go. I'm at a critical point in cultivation and can't make a move lightly. However, with all of you fighting, it should be enough. We celestial devils have never feared war. Expel those abhorrent controllers from the dark domain chiliocosm. The voice of Emperor Mongshan even traveled out of the tower, echoing throughout the entire celestial devil world. I am Emperor Mongshan. As Emperor Mongshan personally transmitted his voice, all the celestial devils grew excited. The entire celestial devil world was thrilled. The celestial devils had never feared war with the controllers. Perhaps many celestial devils would die, but at the same time, war with the controllers also meant opportunities for celestial devils. After all, the world origins contained in the controllers' worlds were very abundant. If they could kill one or two controllers, the celestial devils could even reach the top at one go, and their strength would increase substantially. It was not impossible for them to cultivate a few or even more than a dozen layers of celestial devils' true forms. Hence, war was even a catalyst for the celestial devils. The entire celestial devil world was simmering with excitement. Every celestial devil was eager to fight. The dark domain chiliocosm was about to become a battlefield between the celestial devils and the controllers. In the immortal land, the heretics ran rampant. Ever since Lin Feng devoured the immortal land had undergone a huge change. Originally, the immortal land was divided into the orthodox and heretic factions. At some point, another cultivation system called the Celestial Devil Doctrine seemed to have branched from the heretic factions in the immortal land. This Celestial Devil Doctrine was extremely secretive. It seemed that if someone gave in to their mental demons and developed greed in their heart during cultivation, celestial devils from another world would take advantage of their weakness. Their bodies would be taken over, and they would become slaves of the celestial devils, turned into walking corpses. Thud. In the chaotic civilization, Pan ripped apart a cultivator who had gone berserk with a single palm strike. The other party was once a genius of the heretic faction, and his ascension was extremely fast. However, who would have thought that the celestial devils had exploited his weakness long ago? And he specifically cultivated the Celestial Devil Doctrine. The so-called Celestial Devil Doctrine was an out-and-out evil doctrine in the immortal land. It was explicitly forbidden. Once cultivators were found studying the Celestial Devil Doctrine, they would be immediately killed without mercy. Great Father Deity! Suddenly, Pan seemed to have sensed something and bowed towards a certain direction in the void. Buzz! A figure gradually condensed in the void. It was the universe ruler, the god of creation, Lin Feng. Pan. How's the situation in the immortal land? Father Deity, although there are very few cultivators who cultivate the Celestial Devil Doctrine, their legacy has never been severed. In particular, those celestial devils are pervasive. They will take advantage of the various emotional fluctuations of cultivators to invade silently. Only after displaying greatly destructive behavior and some obvious characteristics will they be discovered by us and killed one by one. However, we cannot eliminate the celestial devils at the root. Lin Feng nodded and said, 3,000 universe demons. You are my protectors. I can give you great authorization to pass through any world in the universe and not be suppressed by the rules of the world. Your only duty is to find and eliminate those living beings controlled by the celestial devils. No quarter is to be given. As you command, Great Father Deity. Then, Lin Feng's form gradually dissipated, and he returned to his true body. Lin Feng's true form was currently inspecting or searching and exploring the infinite dark domain. However, during this period of time, he had not encountered a single celestial devil, nor had he encountered any worlds. Instead, there was a problem with his internal universe, and that was the celestial devil's flesh left behind in his internal universe. Lin Feng had once destroyed celestial devil Rakshasa and celestial devil Ordo's true forms in the internal universe, but this also sowed future trouble. Ever since Lin Feng returned to the dark domain Kiliacosm, there had been some faint movement in his internal universe. In particular, the flesh of the two celestial devils had begun to make a move. To begin with, celestial devils could control emotions and capture the mental weaknesses of living beings until they descended directly into the consciousness of living beings. Some called it a mental demon, some called it going insane, and some called it possession. However, in reality, Lin Feng knew that this was the doing of the celestial devil's flesh. The remaining celestial devil's flesh was naturally extremely weak and insignificant to Lin Feng. However, in those worlds in the internal universe, to ordinary or cultivating life forms, celestial devils were simply invincible. Moreover, they were so secretive. If he was not careful, a portion of Lin Feng's world origin might even be stolen by those living beings controlled by the celestial devils. This was not the first or second time such a situation had occurred. It happened again and again, causing a lot of trouble for Lin Feng. However, there was nothing he could do. It's time to make a trip back. It's just as well that when I return this time, I'll consult Supremacy Autumn about how to deal with the celestial devils in this internal world. In the past, Lin Feng had not thought that the residual flesh of the celestial devils in the internal universe was a huge problem. But now it seemed like that was because the celestial devil's flesh had not caused trouble in the past. Or rather, it had been dormant in the past. Now, this celestial devil's flesh was beginning to induce problems, causing Lin Feng a lot of trouble. Lin Feng had no choice but to think of a way to deal with it. Every once in a while, the controllers would return to the war fortress and exchange certain information to determine the territory of the dark domain Kiliacosm, thereby creating a detailed map. With this map, the places they explored would not change much. They could be recognized. This would be very helpful in the future war with the celestial devils. Lin Feng returned to the war fortress for the third time. The first thing he did was go to Supremacy Autumn's residence. Supremacy Lin Feng? I heard that your exploration went quite well. You even helped Supremacy Fura and obtained a world. Supremacy Autumn clearly cared a lot about Lin Feng. He even knew about these things. It's just a world. Supremacy Autumn, I'm here to consult you on something. Oh, what is it? It's about the celestial devil's flesh. I killed 2 celestial devils in the dark domain Kiliacosm previously. Lin Feng did not conceal it. He told Supremacy Autumn everything about the 2 celestial devils in detail, and asked Supremacy Autumn if there was a solution. Hearing this, Supremacy Autumn pondered for a moment before answering. Actually, this is not a big problem. It's just the flesh of 2 celestial devils. Can only cause you a little trouble. There's actually only one way to resolve it, and that is to destroy the celestial devil world in the dark domain Kiliacosm and completely kill these 2 celestial devils. Once the 2 celestial devils fall completely, their flesh in your body will naturally disappear. Is this the only way? Lin Feng naturally knew how difficult it was to destroy the celestial devil world. That would require winning the war. If they lost the war, would he have to endure the harassment of the celestial devils forever? Supremacy Autumn could only say helplessly, there's really only one way to resolve it completely. The characteristics of celestial devils are very strange. Forget about me. Even a Kiliacosm sovereign might be parasitized by the remnant flesh of celestial devils if they accidentally devour the celestial devil's true form. There's no other way besides destroying the celestial devil world and ensuring those celestial devils fall completely. Is there really no other way? The remnant flesh of these celestial devils keeps causing trouble in the internal world. It's really annoying. Lin Feng did not quite believe it. There was really no better way. If that's the case, using his internal universe to kill the 2 celestial devils' true forms back then was indeed a little rash. Actually, it's not completely impossible. However, this method involves the path of cultivation of us controllers. Moreover, this method also can't completely resolve the problem of the celestial devil's flesh. Supremacy Autumn pondered for a moment and suggested another solution. Supremacy Autumn, what is it? I'm all ears. Lin Feng's expression turned serious, looking a little expectant. All right, actually, you'll find out sooner or later. Since you've asked me now, I'll tell you. Do you know that the celestial devil's flesh is not completely useless? Apart from being the celestial devil's flesh, it also contains the origins of countless worlds. After all, the celestial devil's true form was cultivated from world origins. In a sense, the celestial devil's true form is the world origin. The world origin? The world origin that constitutes the foundation of the world. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. That's right, the world origin. The celestial devil's true form was condensed from devouring countless world origins. Controllers also desperately needed world origins. However, Lin Feng knew that this was definitely not that simple. If they could devour the celestial devil's true form at will, why didn't the other controllers do so? There must be a reason. Hence, Lin Feng did not say anything. Instead, he quietly listened to Supremacy Autumn's explanation. The world origin. Supremacy Lin Feng killed 2 celestial devils' true forms. You should have obtained the energy of the celestial devil's true forms, right? It would definitely enhance the universe origin greatly. Lin Feng nodded and said, it can indeed increase the universe origin, but the gain does not seem to make up for the losses. It has planted hidden dangers in my internal world. What I want to talk about are the 2 paths of cultivation for controllers. The first is called the path of devouring. As the name implies, it is to constantly devour worlds one after another. One's strength will increase very quickly, and there are almost no hidden dangers. However, the disadvantages are also very obvious. If one can't find an unfamiliar region and more worlds, how can they devour them? Although the many controller supremacies of our primordial lodge seem to be able to devour worlds one after another, in reality, this is because our mission in this small kiliacosm is to open up a battlefield in the first place. On the battlefield, it is naturally very easy to encounter worlds and devour them. However, if we are in a medium kiliacosm or a relatively stable faction, such as when guarding the exquisite realm, how can we devour worlds one after another? At that time, cultivation would stagnate. We might not see any improvement in tens of millions or even billions of years. In reality, such is the case for most controllers. Hence, a second path of cultivation was developed called the path of nurturing. It is very difficult to encounter a new world, but it is all too easy to encounter the living beings of some destroyed worlds. If these life forms are moved into the internal universe, after their imprint is erased by the reincarnation realm, we can naturally obtain imprints of unfamiliar worlds one after another, and even gradually form the seed of a civilization. However, that is only the seed of a civilization. It is too slow and too difficult for it to become a complete world fully. Conventional nurturing will definitely require a lot of effort and a very long time. It's not worth it. However, there's another method. It's to use the power of world origins and constantly infuse many world origins into those civilization seeds. Then, by accelerating time, these seeds of civilization can grow very quickly and even eventually grow into a complete world. This is the path of nurturing. Where can one obtain the world origin? It has to be known that the world origin of a controller is very important in itself. If it's used to cultivate worlds, that would be putting the cart before the horse, and the gains would not make up for the losses. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He immediately thought of a possibility, and said in a low voice, "Is it by annihilating the celestial devil's true forms? Once the celestial devil's true form is annihilated, one can obtain an endless stream of world origin to nurture the seeds of civilization and propel them to grow rapidly." That's right. This is the path of nurturing. Supremacy Autumn nodded with satisfaction. However, Lin Feng frowned and pondered. There was no absolute distinction between the path of devouring and the path of nurturing. If there were worlds, they would naturally be devoured. If there was no world, one could also nurture worlds. After all, encountering celestial devils was far easier than encountering a new world. However, wasn't there a hidden danger in destroying the celestial devil's true forms? Supremacy Autumn. How do I resolve the hidden danger? Lin Feng returned to his initial question. Hidden danger? Actually, in your opinion, can the troubles in your body be considered hidden dangers? What's the big deal about being tracked by the celestial devils? Even if they don't track you, it won't be that difficult for the celestial devils to find you. Moreover, it's impossible to track you again after leaving a Kiliacosm domain. The true hidden danger is actually the flesh of the celestial devils, hidden in the world after destroying celestial devils' true forms. They can constantly control the living beings in the world by manipulating the emotions of living beings, thereby stealing the world origin, or causing some damage to the world. This is a little trouble that must be endured on the path of cultivation, or a small price to pay. If you want things to go calmly, without any danger at all and without paying any price, you can only take the path of devouring. Supremacy Lin Feng would have to make the choice yourself. Actually, many controller supremacies take both paths at the same time. Once the celestial devil world is destroyed, most of the hidden dangers in their internal world will disappear. However, there are also some controllers who paid a painful price. The hidden dangers in their internal world accumulated, causing their internal world to be invaded by the flesh of countless celestial devils. They manipulated the living beings of the world, inducing serious damage to their internal world. It caused the controller's strength to decline and even endangered them, resulting in their falls. All of this requires careful consideration by the controllers themselves. Lin Feng understood now. The path of devouring and the path of nurturing were both possible, but one had to control the limit. Within this limit, they could quickly improve their strength. However, if they exceeded this limit, going too far was also perilous. It would cause trouble or even danger to himself. Celestial devils were not terrifying. If used properly, celestial devils were even nutritious in the eyes of the controller and signified many world origins. Although they could not directly improve the strength of a controller like a new world, they could allow the accumulation of powerful origins and nurturing world after world, thereby indirectly enhancing the power of the internal universe. Lin Feng bade farewell to Supremacy Autumn. He had already obtained the answer. Just as Supremacy Autumn had said, celestial devils were not frightening. What was a little minor hidden danger? Lin Feng had made the 3,000 universe demons protectors, which was enough to deal with the problem of the remaining flesh of the two celestial devils' true forms. Perhaps this would instead give life forms in the internal universe a little warning. In cultivation, the slightest carelessness or greed would cause one to go insane, and the celestial devils would take advantage of their weakness. Celestial devils could also become a part of cultivation. Perhaps, as nature would have it, a complete world could only be considered truly perfected with the presence of celestial devils. Lin Feng had already made up his mind. Currently, there were only 8 complete worlds in his internal universe, but in reality, there were far more than 8 civilizations. For example, the Immortal Land Civilization, Netherworld Civilization, Abyss Civilization, and so on were all civilizations, but they could not develop into complete worlds in a short period of time. If these civilizations were infused with world origin and the flow of time was sped up, these civilizations might quickly grow into complete worlds. Lin Feng wanted to try it himself. Even if he trusted Supremacy Autumn, he could only familiarize himself with the process and be more confident if he tried it himself. Hence, Lin Feng targeted the Immortal Land Civilization. Compared to other civilizations, the Immortal Land Civilization was a small world after all, and could be considered to have a foundation. As long as world origin was constantly infused, the Immortal Land Civilization could develop rapidly. As for the world origin, Lin Feng's universe origin was incomparably abundant to begin with. In addition, he had killed the true forms of 2 celestial devils in the internal universe previously, and obtained a massive amount of world origin. Then, let me see what kind of drastic changes will occur when world origin is infused into the Immortal Land Civilization. Lin Feng's consciousness already locked tightly onto the Immortal Land Civilization in the universe. All of Lin Feng's world origin was absorbed by the chaotic lotus and stored in it. However, Lin Feng was a controller and the ruler of the world. Hence, with a thought, he had the chaotic lotus divide a portion of the world origin, and slowly integrate it into the immortal land civilization silently. Moreover, he immediately accelerated the flow of time to about 10,000 times. Then, he quietly observed the changes in the immortal land civilization. As the world origin was slowly infused into the immortal land civilization, no earth-shattering changes actually occurred in the immortal land civilization. There were only some subtle and silent changes. For example, certain natural treasures in the immortal land civilization seemed to be slowly increasing. The world's spiritual aura also seemed to be slowly increasing. They increased completely silently year by year. Even the entire immortal land continent had become much larger without their realization. Many people obtained some fortuitous encounters, and their strength advanced by leaps and bounds, greatly increasing the number of people who reached the Golden Core realm. A third nascent divine immortal, a fourth nascent divine immortal, and so on were even born. Moreover, as the number of nascent soul immortals increased, the various rules of the entire immortal land became more stable. These nascent soul immortals could no longer completely control the celestial land. It was as if their power was stripped away bit by bit. They were only at the nascent soul realm, and could no longer control the power of any of the immortal land. Hence, realms above the nascent soul immortal realm also appeared. Celestial immortals, mystic immortals, golden immortals, zenith heaven golden immortals, and so on appeared. Many immortals appeared, far above the nascent soul immortal realm. In fact, as time passed, many immortals in the immortal land felt that the immortal land was too chaotic. Hence, they used great mystic power to open up a new space, called the immortal realm. The immortal realm was separated from the original immortal land. Only nascent soul immortals could enter the immortal realm to cultivate. Lin Feng had been observing the changes in the immortal land the whole time. His 1 year in the outside world was equivalent to a total of 10,000 years in the immortal land. These 10,000 years were enough to change everything. After 10,000 years of development, the immortal land had long changed drastically. Not only had a zenith heaven golden immortal been born, even the path for becoming a Taoist ancestor above the realm of the zenith heaven vaguely appeared. The Taoist ancestor was the world ruler. Lin Feng knew that this was the path that every world would go through. To a controller like Lin Feng, the birth of a world ruler in the internal universe was actually nothing much. Even if a ruler could dominate a world, they would still abide by the rules of the universe, and would be beneath a controller like him. Moreover, it was impossible for a ruler to control a complete world fully. Boom! When the first zenith heaven golden immortal in the immortal land integrated his being with the principle, and became a Taoist ancestor, the entire world was completely consummate. Lin Feng could clearly sense that the power in the internal universe had increased greatly. The ninth world. Lin Feng was incomparably excited. Previously, there were only 8 complete worlds in his internal universe. Now, as the immortal land civilization was completely nurtured and perfected, turning into a complete world, there were 9 complete worlds in Lin Feng's internal universe. And this only took a year. Even with the 10,000 times acceleration, it actually only took 10,000 years in the internal universe. I've consumed a little too much origin. Lin Feng checked the origin in the chaotic lotus carefully and realized that too much of the universe origin had been consumed. He had acquired world origin back when he killed the true form of celestial devil Rakshasa. As for Ordos, he had not even cultivated the celestial devil's true form, so he actually did not have much world origin. Even if a celestial devil's true form was transformed into origin, there was actually still some consumption. It was impossible for it to be comparable to the origin of a world. Moreover, just one portion of world origin was not enough for nurturing a complete world. This involved the difference in rules between worlds, as well as the problem of a large amount of energy lost in conversion. Although he had lost some of the origin, Lin Feng's origin was very powerful to begin with, so it would not affect the internal universe much. However, this was also the limit. Could only nurture one complete world. If he wanted to continue nurturing the netherworld civilization, abyss civilization, and so on, Lin Feng didn't have enough power now. That was, unless he could obtain more world origin. This would require a large amount of world origin that only came from destroying the celestial devil's true form. It's a shame about the 3 celestial devils from before. They were all celestial devils who had cultivated 5-layer true forms. The amount of origin contained must be very abundant. Lin Feng shook his head, feeling that it was a shame. Previously, when he killed the 3 celestial devils, it seemed like Supremacy Fura also took the path of devouring, and did not devour the celestial devil's true forms of the 3 celestial devils. As a result, the celestial devil's true forms of these 3 celestial devils were directly wasted by Lin Feng. However, so what if they were wasted? Lin Feng would not dwell on it. After understanding his path of cultivation, Lin Feng knew very well that there were still many opportunities to encounter celestial devils in the future, so he was not in a hurry. Combining the paths of devouring and nurturing was the path of cultivation that Lin Feng would take in the future. Celestial devils. It's the celestial devils. Controllers. It's those damned controllers. Kill these celestial devils. Tear apart the controllers' worlds. Devour the controllers' world origin. At some point, more and more celestial devils suddenly appeared in the dark domain Kiliacosm. Many controllers encountered a large number of celestial devils. In the beginning, everyone was very happy, because many controllers combined the paths of devouring and nurturing. Sometimes, celestial devils were also very beneficial to controllers. However, as time passed, many controller supremacies realized that the probability of encountering celestial devils was just too high. Moreover, they often did not encounter just 1 or 2 celestial devils, but a few or even more than 10. The celestial devils were not weak. They were very familiar with the controllers when fighting in the myriad worlds. Hence, eventually there were casualties among the controllers. Most controllers could escape successfully, but there were still a small number of controllers who were very unlucky and encountered very strong celestial devils, resulting in their falls. The first controller, the second controller, the third controller. In a short period of time, a total of 10 controllers had fallen. The Primordial Lodge finally sensed that something was amiss. Hence, many controllers captured some celestial devils and used various methods, finally learning the reason. Celestial Devil Emperor Mongshan had personally given the order. Almost all the celestial devils in the celestial devil world were mobilized. Unknown to them, the war had already begun. In the pitch-black dark domain, the communication mark on Lin Feng's wrist vibrated slightly. The 11th controller has fallen. Lin Feng's expression was solemn, and his heart sank slightly. During this period of time, controllers fell continuously. Of course, there might be more casualties among the celestial devils. Overall, there were more celestial devils, and controllers were stronger in a one-on-one battle. However, the deaths of a total of 11 controllers in such a short period of time still shocked Lin Feng. It also gave Lin Feng a preliminary understanding of the brutality of the war between the celestial devils and the controllers. War did not necessarily mean that the controllers would obtain benefits, nor did it mean that the controllers would win. Controllers could also fall. Huh? Celestial devils. Suddenly, Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. He sensed that a total of 4 celestial devils had appeared in front of him. Their savage aura was as conspicuous as scorching flames in the dark domain. The 4 celestial devils had clearly also discovered Lin Feng. Haha, it's a controller. We've finally met a controller. A controller has many internal worlds. Kill him, rip apart his world, and devour the world origin. Moreover, killing a controller can even warrant rewards from His Majesty, the Celestial Devil King. The 4 celestial devils flew in front of Lin Feng at an extremely fast speed in the blink of an eye. They stared at Lin Feng menacingly, unable to conceal the greed on their faces. Incoming. Lin Feng looked at the 4 celestial devils in front of him, and a smile appeared on his face. These 4 celestial devils were not weak. He could tell from the aura on their bodies. Kill them. Without any hesitation, the 4 celestial devil manifested their celestial devil's true forms. The terrifying celestial devil's true forms were overwhelming, instantly covering the entire void and surrounding Lin Feng. 2 celestial devils had cultivated 6-layer true forms, and the other 2 were even more terrifying. They had a total of 8 layers of true forms. Moreover, the 2 parties were incomparably adept at coordinating. It was obvious that they often cooperated. Even those who were stronger than them were probably not their match. The 4 celestial devils' 8 arms instantly grabbed towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng also intended to see how the defense of his internal universe was. Hence, the membrane of his internal universe strengthened instantly. In the direction the 4 celestial devils grabbed, the cosmic membrane was strengthened to its strongest state. This was the membrane reinforcement secret technique. Coupled with it, the chaotic lotus in Lin Feng's internal universe firmly stabilized the cosmic membrane and space. Rumble. All 4 celestial devils were not weak. From all directions, the terrifying celestial devils' true forms shook Lin Feng's cosmic membrane madly, but it was useless. Lin Feng was still as stable as a mountain. Relying on the secret technique and the chaotic lotus stabilization of the cosmic space, these 4 celestial devils could not even break the cosmic membrane of Lin Feng's internal universe. My turn! A sharp glint flashed across Lin Feng's eyes. Then all the worlds in his internal universe shook slightly, and the terrifying power of the worlds instantly fused together. Myriad Origin Integration. This was the Myriad Origin secret technique, the secret technique most suitable for Lin Feng. He combined all the power of the worlds and civilizations in his internal universe. There were a total of 9 worlds. In terms of strength, they were even comparable to 12 ordinary worlds. Hence, even when facing these 4 powerful celestial devils, Lin Feng's strength at this moment was still overwhelmingly powerful. Bang, bang, bang. Lin Feng did not care that his universe might be torn apart by the celestial devils at all. He aimed directly at 2 of the weaker celestial devils with 6-layer true forms. His 2 hands crushed down hard like huge millstones. The 2 celestial devils cried out in pain. Their 6-layer true forms were crushed and shattered like jelly, turning into dust. 1st layer, 2nd layer, 3rd layer, 4th layer, 5th layer, 6th layer. In the blink of an eye, the true forms of the 2 6-layer celestial devils were directly crushed into dust. At this moment, it was even impossible for them to use the celestial devil's traversal technique to escape. Devour! Lin Feng would not allow the true forms of these 2 celestial devils to go to waste like this. He expanded his internal universe directly, and with a sweep of the cosmic power, actually swept the 2 celestial devils' true forms into his body. Good opportunity! The other 2 celestial devils who had cultivated 8-layer true forms saw that Lin Feng had actually opened up his internal universe. How could they miss such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? Hence, they all transformed into streams of light in a frenzy, and entered Lin Feng's internal universe in the blink of an eye. Rumble. As soon as the 2 celestial devils entered the internal universe, they manifested the terrifying celestial devil's true form. A total of 8 layers of celestial devil's true form blotted out everything, almost splitting the cosmic membrane. Even the void shattered. From the inside out, the cosmic membrane was very fragile. It was directly torn apart by the 2 celestial devils. For a moment, the entire internal universe fell into turmoil. Ha ha ha, you really don't know what's good for you. You actually dare to let celestial devils like us into your internal world. You simply have a death wish. The 2 celestial devils really did not expect there could be such a foolish and reckless controller who would be so careless as to let celestial devils in his internal world. Is that so? Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly, as if he did not care about the turmoil in the internal universe at all. They were just 2 celestial devils with 8-layer true forms. He even deliberately allowed the 2 celestial devils into the internal universe. Otherwise, what if these 2 celestial devils saw that the situation was not looking good, and used the celestial devil's traversal technique to escape? It was not easy to encounter 2 celestial devils with 8-layer true forms. Lin Feng also had to use a small conspiracy to make these 2 celestial devils enter the internal universe obligingly. Chaotic Lotus. As soon as Lin Feng finished speaking, a huge lotus appeared in the void. It was the chaotic lotus. At this moment, Countless roots stretched deeply into the void, stabilizing the entire void like an iron plate. The expressions of the two celestial devils changed drastically in an instant. Their celestial devils' true forms were even suppressed by the power of the universe. Boom! The entire universe was shaking violently, but Lin Feng was completely unmoved. The cosmic membrane that had been torn apart by the two celestial devils quickly recovered to its original state. At the same time, the two celestial devils were still struggling violently, trying to escape from the internal universe. However, how could Lin Feng let the two celestial devils escape so easily? Once they entered his internal universe, they could forget about escaping. Chaotic civilization, mage civilization, civilization of gods. As civilizations and worlds appeared one after another, a total of 9 civilizations and 9 complete worlds appeared in the internal universe. The 9 worlds provided a terrifying power comparable to 12 ordinary worlds, completely suppressing the two celestial devils from all directions. In fact, they could only watch helplessly as their celestial devils' true forms were gradually crushed into dust layer by layer, turning into the purest origin that was absorbed by the chaotic lotus. No. Celestial Devils' Traversal Technique. The two celestial devils tried to use the celestial devils' traversal technique and ignite their celestial devil's true form. Unfortunately, Lin Feng used all the power in his internal universe to shatter the celestial devil's true forms of the two celestial devils immediately, reducing them to dust. The two celestial devils did not even have the chance to use the celestial devil's traversal technique before they cried out in pain and were completely annihilated. Swoosh! Seeing that the two celestial devils with 8-layer true forms had been completely annihilated, Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief. Actually, this battle was not as relaxed and comfortable for him as he made it seem. The two celestial devils with 8-layer true forms could be considered powerful anywhere. In the end, they struggled with all their might, causing the entire internal universe to be shaken violently. Many civilizations were almost destroyed. Even the 9 complete civilizations were all severely damaged to varying degrees. However, they were only severely damaged, and their foundations had not been affected. As expected, the path of nurturing is not that easy. Letting the celestial devils into the internal universe is a risk. Fortunately, I gained a lot this time. Lin Feng felt a little lucky. Fortunately, they were not two celestial devils with 9-layer or 10-layer celestial devils' true forms. Otherwise, even the foundation of his internal universe would be severely damaged. Perhaps even a few of his internal worlds might be destroyed. Then, the gains would not make up for the losses. Now that not a single world had been destroyed, it could already be considered a complete victory. In particular, the origin provided by 2 celestial devils with 6-layer true forms and 2 celestial devils with 8-layer true forms was simply shockingly abundant.